existed in the market. Because what is going on here is this. The 7% is the compensation for them discovering you and matching you to the person who needs that money. That is the bank's revenue. Revenue is what companies impose on markets for helping markets to overcome frictions that they have. These ordinance, these constructs, this process cuts across every human system, cuts across every element of business. We are all in the business of fixing friction. We are all in the business of making market system better. We are in the business of bringing a better equilibrium point for demand and supply for transactions to take place. So the question here is there for you today. What are you doing? How are you fixing that friction? And what are the things that you need to become a better messenger or a better apparatus in order to go into the market to fix market friction? You could be an entrepreneur involved in making food. Be an entrepreneur involved in creating software. At the end of the day, you have a mission that you want that company to go into. How do you become the best person to now build service and now overcome those frictions? We look at what we call capabilities. That in every firm, you need capabilities. Capabilities are things that are very critical for you now to go into the market to build products and services that you can take to overcome the frictions that customers have. Because if you say you want to be the person that will start that Mama Kemi's restaurant, you need to know how to cook orikoiko, you need to know how to make nkwobi, you need to know how to make zobo. Those things you have are capabilities you need to thrive in that particular business. If you want to say you are the person that person with 1 million naira will give that 1 million naira to build a banking institution, you need capabilities in banking. There are so many dimensions of these capabilities. Technical, managerial, market know-how. They are all elements of capabilities. The more you accumulate, the more you acquire them, the more you deploy them in your company, the better, stronger your company becomes. So what are those components of the capabilities? We now look at the elements. You need to have knowledge as a business person. As an entrepreneur, you need to have knowledge because knowledge is key for you to have the capacity to build products and services that customers need in order to overcome the frictions that they have. When you have knowledge, many beautiful things will happen. It has always been like that nations that have knowledge always advance. Companies that have knowledge always thrive. They go back to the time of the Bible, you read that when before the Israelites, they said they marvel because he has stored under Pharaoh, because the university system then was. And if you look through today, the empires of the past and empire of the future, all of them are going to be built on knowledge. America's strength today is not because they make good bombs. They are great because they have some of the finest Harvard, the MIT, the Johns Hopkins University. These learning, these are elements where new knowledge systems, if you Google Apple, Google, they are engines of new knowledge systems. They innovate. You also need a spirit of entrepreneurial capitalism, your ability to take risk. And then as you do that, you also need labor force, people, messengers, people that believe in the execution of your business models. Those capabilities are you now organized under three things: the people, the processes, and tools. These are the three things that we need in companies to have organizations. You have the people, you have the processes, and the tools. The tools are now used to drive the processes. The people are those who are now going to make everything happen. But one of the things that have happened over the last few years is that the organization, the utilization, the implementation of these three components have always accelerated by one thing they call technology. Today, we are talking about leveraging technology to advance our entrepreneurial mission. It comes out that technology has a very huge impact. Those processes are built, how those tools are utilized, and even on the efficiency of the people who are now going to become the implementers of the business model that we have in farms. You cannot build a solid comparative advantage, competitive advantage without leveraging that technology. Because technology is very, very well. It improves your capacity at a very higher level. You can use it to create a kind of new basis of competition that will now make whatever your competitor is doing do just nothing. Was a very physics student in secondary school. And when we talk about the frictions in market, we're talking about forces, the challenges that customers have. And now you ask yourself, how do you overcome them? The only way you solve a customer problem is by giving a customer a product, a good service. I'm hungry. The only way to overcome that hunger, which is a friction, is to give me food. Food is a product. So what I'm trying to say here is that technology helps you to make good products, forces that can now overcome the frictions that customers have. And that is how technology drives innovation, making it possible that you improve products, you improve services, at the same time you reduce costs. Why is it so key? Since time immemorial, the world has been looking for those who can engineer products and services at a deeper level. Goes back to the philosophical statement of Pythagoras many years ago. He called the day, if you have attended university where you studied engineering, you must have been introduced to natural philosophy, where the professors were trying to explain the old original component of the universe. I recall vividly my first year in university, Federal University of Technology, where the professor, as a Reverend Father came into the class, he says, students, I will take you on logic and philosophy, and I want to take you back to the origin of knowledge. He explained how Thales, Pythagoras, Heraclitus debated the original component of the universe. And that day he said that Thales said that the world is nothing but water. Heraclitus said that the world is nothing but fire. But I like what he said about Pythagoras. The world is nothing but numbers. The world is nothing but numbers. It means that everything we do in life, everything we do in business is nothing but numbers. The business of retail is nothing but the numbers around retail. The business of logistics is nothing about the numbers in logistics. So in other words, if you understand the numbers around logistics, you become a better entrepreneur. If you understand the numbers around retail, you become a better retail entrepreneur. If you understand the numbers around education, in other words, if you don't understand the numbers around your sector, you cannot advance. But how do you understand the numbers? You need to make sense of so many. What Pythagoras said, we need to compute our lives. And that has been from abacus to slide rule to ENIAC to difference engine to transistor to microcontroller circuits to the time we live. Technology has done one thing, asymptotically getting us to the perfect point to understand the world and society that we live. And that means that those who deploy and leverage technology understands better the numbers around their sector, around their business. And that becomes easier for them to understand what their customers want. The problems of your customers are around the numbers, around those customers. And technology makes it easy for you to understand this. Gentlemen and ladies, what I'm trying to say here is today that the empires of the future are going to be powered by technology systems. The reason why banks of today are going to evolve into different new species in future, the banking institutions that may have more technology systems, is because those banks will understand their customers because they are closer to the numbers of their customers. The difference between fintech and the typical bank is one thing. The fintech works on numbers to overcome the frictions that the customers have. And because of those numbers, they personalize, get deeper into fixing the frictions their customers have. Leverage it, drive it, accelerate it, deploy it, and you will have the alpha. As you go into this program, I'm very confident that you will see that technology is not just a buzzword. It's a very competitive advantage to help you to improve your processes, to help you to improve, build better tools, and also make it easier for the human systems, the most important factor of production, to bring efficiency as you recognize, organize, recombine all those elements for the pursuit, for the perfection of the mission of France. So thank you so much, gentlemen and ladies. I want to wish you a very wonderful program, and I want to tell you something, that abundance is in the future. Everything that you have read, everything that you have seen in Africa and Nigeria, we are just getting started. Because of one thing, if you see our GDP, we have not even started. Nigeria GDP is sub $500 billion. America GDP is up close to 30 trillion. The population of America is 330 million. Nigeria's population is about 210 million. In other words, Nigeria GDP needs to be around 10 trillion, which means we need to have a multiple of nearly 20x for us to even begin to say. It means when you say 20x, there will be 20 Dangote Cement, there will be 20 UBS, there will be 20 Zenith Bank, there will be 20, everything that you see in Nigeria. It means, you know one thing, there will not be enough graduates to hire because every person that needs a job in Nigeria will have one. I've also told some of these political leaders, you have a big problem. You don't even have enough graduates in Nigeria that can be employed. If we can get our economic system to fire up at the cylinders that we need them to fire at, because we don't produce enough of them. But that promise will come if we build a system, if we bring engineering and reorganize, deepen, and rise. That not that you have risen as an individual, not that Ndubuisi has risen, but that all will rise. And when all will rise, abundance will be for everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me to your program, and have a very, very beautiful one. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Ndubuisi. And typical of every encounter with you, whether on LinkedIn, anywhere anyone comes across you, is always very insightful. My notes are full right now, and I will just briefly implore you to please hang around, because we would need you to also help the panelists when it's time for the question and answer session. Kindly please hang around. We understand that time is very valuable, but we appreciate you. Kindly hang around while we proceed with the remaining part of the session. I'm sure it's been a time of learning, unlearning, and relearning for all of us. And I'm sure somebody here wants to send the link quickly to their friends. So you have the link to join the session. I'm sure you don't want to be selfish. You want to share the link with your friends and contacts so that they can come and get what we're getting here. It's been a very, very insightful session. So I'll just briefly touch on what Professor Ndubuisi mentioned before I move on to our panelists. He said that companies exist to solve frictions in the market, and that is really what it is. There are no frictions in the market, we won't have companies. And what friction, what problem are they solving? There's a demand and supply equilibrium that we need to meet. And if you want to meet that, we need companies to make those things available. He also said that revenue is what companies impose on you, on the system, for helping them to solve the problem of frictions and imperfection in the market. So they earn revenue because they are solving those problems of frictions and imperfection. So if you want to make money, it means that you must be solving a problem of friction. You are probably bringing a supplier and somebody that has a demand together, or you are also solving a problem that somebody has. And he said that for us to build, we need to also build capacity in different areas, technical, market, managerial, and different areas. If you don't build capacity, we'll still operate at the level where we're operating. Ladies and gentlemen, I still need to remind us that this is still Entrepreneurs Connect Business Summit 2022, and today is also Nigeria's Independence Day. So it's never too much to say again that happy independence to everyone in the room. Knowledge is very key, according to Professor Ndubuisi, and then he went ahead to break it down to say we need people, processes, and tools if you want to make things work. People, processes, and tools. I'm holding that with my left hand so that I don't eat with it. People, processes, and tools. And I'm going to be charging our panelists to delve into this when it's time for me to engage them on these three aspects that Professor Ndubuisi mentioned: people, processes, and tools. And I'm sure naturally, Mr. Lesile George knows I'm going to be asking him about people, since he's a human resources person. All right, so let me not jump ahead of myself. Technology, technology, technology. That's what we're talking about today. We cannot accelerate our businesses if we don't leverage technology. And he has gone ahead to mention that technology systems are going to power the empires of the future. And I won't agree less. As somebody that works within the MSME and startup ecosystem, I know that the major difference between the startups who are getting all the attention, all the funding, all the applause, and the traditional MSMEs is that the startups are leveraging technology. They are driving what they are doing with a lot of technology, unlike the conventional MSMEs who still wants to do everything manually. And that's where the problem is, okay? So you get to hear that this particular startup has just got $10 million seed funding or whatever level of funding, series 1, series 2, or whatever. And you're asking yourself, what about these companies that have been in the market for so many years? Why are they not getting the same thing? It's because they are using technology to power their businesses, and because it's all about scalability. Investors are looking for scales. And you remember Professor Ndubuisi mentioned numbers. You cannot talk about scaling your businesses if you are not dealing with numbers, all right? So my notes are full, like I said, and it's been a very, very rewarding session for me personally. And then, so right now I'm going to be bringing our panelists on board. So I will just do a brief introduction of the 3 panelists, okay? And then I will ask them to speak for 5 minutes before we now go into question and answer session. So each panelist is going to speak to us for about 5 minutes thereabout on how they are using technology to power their business and what challenges they still encounter. Finally, powering their businesses with technology. And we also, after they have all made that presentation, we'll have Professor Ndubuisi probably advise them on how they can overcome those challenges, right? They will talk to us about how they are using technology, what they were doing before, probably manually, that they now use technology to drive. And if there are still challenges, they want to talk to us about it. This is Business Summit, where we get to learn and unlearn and relearn, okay? So I would start with Dr. Adebola Ismail Akindele. Is going to be our first panel that will make his 5 minutes presentation. Group Managing Director of Courtevile Business Solutions, a business process outsourcing and information. Sorry, technology just failed me. Can everybody hear me now?
Sure.
Am I back?
You're back.
Yeah, technology just failed me. I was reading the profile of Dr. Akindele. So in 2008 to 2009, his company's initial public offering and listing was listed on the Nigerian Stock Exchange, and he set a record as the first business process outsourcing and e-business solution development company in Nigeria to do so. Dr. Akindele was Lagos State Man of the Year 2017. Ladies and gentlemen, kindly welcome Dr. Akindele for his presentation.
Good afternoon, all. Thank you very much, and happy and Independence Anniversary to all of us. Congratulations, and thank you very much, Seye, again. Thank you very much, Dr. Ayo Adeyemi. Thank you very much for Professor Ekekwe, and to all of us that are here, either as panelists or participants. And, it's great to be here today. And I'm supposed to talk about whether we have engaged technology at all in my business. I've been I've been practicing as a graduate, as a professional since 1984, 85 or thereabouts. And I've witnessed all sorts of different era, I would say, or phases of development in the Nigerian economy. But let us talk about how the relevance of technology affects everything that we've done. Not just my company, Courtevile, but even all the other small businesses that have been set up around what we do. There have been I want to talk about 3 different development activities since humanity started. The first one I will talk about will be the fact that we've had 4 economic or industrial revolutions since the advent of humanity. When the early man developed tools to work. Since then, we've had 4. And the first one was when man discovered metallurgy. That was around 3,600 or so years ago. And then after that, the next evolution that was recorded in history was that of steam power. Steam power to project activity, to move activity, especially when the British employed this steam power to move their ship, not only economic ships, but even warships and all that. And it changed the dynamics of not only warfare, but economic warfare itself. And then we went on to when the Americans kind of discovered in 1908 or thereabout, mass production technology. Now, the most recent before now, that makes it the 4th one, is the automation that started around between 1946 and 1960s, where computers started showing up. Computerization started showing up. Now, what we have now, the current phase of economic revolution is that of the digital economy, digital revolution. That is the first part of it. Second part of it is that we all went into elementary economics in secondary schools. And I don't know if it is still taught now, but we were told that the factors of production are 4. I was in secondary school between 1974 and 1979. It's a long time ago. And I don't know if anything has changed the current economic textbooks, but it used to be land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. We were taught at that time that outside in all of this, only labor was mobile. That was then. Now, every single thing in these production factors, in this listing, has become mobile. Land has become mobile, I assure you. That is why the governments of the Emirates, the Saudis, the Americans, the Europeans have swaths, hectares, hundreds of thousands of hectares of land in East Africa, and the Chinese as well, in Nigeria as well, where they grow what they want, where they mine what they want, and ship all this back to their country. Since probably they do not have the kind of resources that they need to do what they need to do in their countries, and then come back to us with value on top of it and sell to us at a very high price. Now, capital is definitely mobile. So is labor and entrepreneurship. But they added something towards the end. They added technology to the factors of production, even then. Now, the last part of it is that throughout this development, economic development in the history of man, 3 key factors or areas must interplay for development to take place, or for you to have that headway, or to be at the forefront. One is that there must be a very strong communication system. There must also be very, very strong and properly designed and developed logistics and transportation systems in place in that economy. And last but not the least, that you must have the kind of power resources, not just oil or electricity, but power to carry out business activities. And all these things must interrelate. They must show face, they must work together for you to be able to stand and become advanced economically. Now, in each of these, whether you are talking about industrialization and the revolution of industry over the years, or production factors, or even this, last thing that I mentioned, Everything is about technology. So if entrepreneurship is part of what we do in producing items of value or services, definitely technology straddles all of the things that we need to do. And there's no how you can engage in any business activity, even now. It doesn't matter what level, what part of the chain you find yourself. Be the dundu seller on the road. People may want to pay with their cards. You may want to use the phone to call your supplier or to sell your products. Even if you are just ordinary Omolanke pusher or the card pusher on the streets, for as long as there's an economic activity to be generated, to be produced, some value to be produced, there will be a need for you to engage some form of technology. What we have now is digital age, whereby on practically everything has to be about how fast, how easy, how cheap, and how quick, how well you are able to deliver the value proposition to the end users. Technology is where everyone has to play to be able to get there. Now, I know we only have 5 minutes, but that is all it's all about. I've always been part of the logistics that promoted Courtevile in 2004. That is what we started out to be. We started out as a corporate business advisory firm for local large corporates, registered with SEC. And then we moved on very quickly when we found ourselves swimming in oceans with big sharks, the big four consultancies, the big four audit firms and all that. We decided we were going to go for something mass market. It was in the effort to doing that we came up with what makes us most popular now in the area of what we do. Being the first in this area of our business, of the economy, to be listed on Nigeria Stock Exchange, we came out with the AutoReg in 2007, AutoReg Business Solutions. AutoReg business development for motor vehicle acquisition documentation across the Lagos state that gave us the first chance. We employed technology, not computerization, to create what we call the business development effort in creating value to all stakeholders. Now, when you are engaging with technology, it is not just for the fun of you, the user, the owner. It has to be for the benefit of all the stakeholders. You, the audience that you are trying to attract, the users, and everybody, including regulators, they must find it useful. AutoReg came in and solved the problems that have been in the system for decades, over 5 decades. And thereafter, we were able to reduce processing time of motor vehicles from what it used to be 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or 4 weeks to less than 5 minutes from start to end. And through a process that allows you to be able to walk into a point and get out your vehicle documentation in one space of 5 minutes. What did we do? We just made things simpler. Employed objectives and goals that we knew we got from the frustrations of what people were doing to get their daily lives along in terms of motor vehicle documentation. So we've grown to about 26 states in Nigeria. We are in Jamaica. We are in a few countries in East Africa, and we are in Sierra Leone. And we also have been able to leverage this same technology, to grow into, providing services, value services to agencies like NAFDAC, like the Nigerian Insurance Association, like so many, like FRS, like LRS, FRSC, the Nigerian Police, EFCC comes to us when they need data, because everything rides on you being able to work with the numbers. Now, Professor Ekekwe talked about not being able to do anything without the tools. Technology is the tool that I believe he's been talking about since. Without you being able to generate the data that helps you decide on the best way to go forward, the tool will not also be useful. And that is part of the processes we are talking about as well. Now, with data, you can get to do anything. Digitalization and technology allows you to get to that point. Record your data, use it to address challenges that may be in front of you or that may just be around you, and you can solve them. Courtevile Business Solution is very simple. It's a medium-sized company employing over 200 people across Nigeria and the Caribbean. So we are just here as a medium-sized company completely employing technology for everything we do in order to get to where we want to get to. Thank you very much, and God bless you all.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Akindele. Personally, I want to say thank you to you and thank you to Courtevile. I mean, for everybody that has to renew their vehicle license or do one or two things, of course, you must have come in contact with AutoReg. I mean, that's solving a problem that has been in the market for over 5 decades. So obviously, you are using technology and you are using it very well. And I heard you say you are in 26 states in Nigeria and even outside the country already. Did I get that right?
Yes, yes, definitely.
Wow, that's fantastically awesome.
By the way,
thank you very much.
I just
go ahead, sir.
Yes. And by the way, please, all of you, when you do have that idea or that technology that works, the first thing you should do, please, I beg of you all, register it with the patent authorities. It doesn't matter whether the patent, regulations are strong or not. Do your intellectual property registration effectively and put it in place. And remember, you cannot come onto the internet. You cannot be exposed to the internet or anywhere before you attempt to register it. Keep it close, get it to the authorities. It will help you in the future. It did help us. Otherwise, we will not be where we are. Thank you.
Wow, thank you very much for that. It's very, very important for us to protect our innovation. Please, let's not joke with it, entrepreneurs. Yeah, you registered your company, but what about trademark? What about copyright? What about patent? And every other thing we need to do to protect, because it's just going to be your word against them when you have something you have not protected and somebody else comes out with the idea, right? Thank you so much once again, Dr. Adebola and Dr. Adebola Akindele. We're still going to come back to you at the question and answer session. Right now, I'm going to move on to Dr. Ibilola Amao. And let me quickly read our profile. Dr. Ibilola Amao is the principal consultant of Lonadek Global Services. She's a multi-award winning woman-owned company, ISO 9001:2015 certified company, which was established as an engineering, technology, and innovation solutions company in 1991. That's some 31 years ago. Lonadek built capability, and competence of STEM talent to empower value through the democratization of technology in the energy, power, infrastructure, manufacturing, oil and gas sectors. Dr. Ibilola Amao is a fellow of the Institute of Directors, Energy Institute UK and Nigeria Society of Engineers. She's an Energy Institute UK Council member. She sits on the IP Week board and on the panel of judges for the Royal Academy of Engineering UK African Prize. She's the co-founder of the Women in Energy Network, a council member of We Connect International Nigeria, and sits on board as an engineering technology expert. Dr. Amao is a We Connect 2021 Rise to the Challenge Engineering Sector awardee, which was sponsored by Logitech. She's a 2020 C3 International Energy Women of Decision awardee, Forbes Rising Star 2019, Vital Voices 2016, VV100 Fellow, a 2016 International Women Entrepreneur Challenge awardee, and a 2016 Energy Champion. She mentors STEMpreneurs and techpreneurs as a Vital Voices, VV Grow, VV10, GAP 2017 Fellow, and We Connect International Certified Member. She's involved in Girls in STEM and Women in Entrepreneurial activities with Wimbase. Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Dr. Ibilola Amao as she tells us about how she uses technology in our business and probably also delve into whatever challenge or challenges they might have or have encountered using technology. Dr. Amao, you have the floor, ma'am.
Okay, thank you so much. I wasn't allowed to unmute earlier. So standing on existing protocols, I just want to say a big thank you to the coordinators of this event, the speakers, the panelists for the opportunity to share what we do at Lonadek and the dimensions of how we've been able to overcome our challenges. So I'm a firm believer in collaboration, partnerships, and we have strategic partners and technical partners we work with across geographies and time zones to deliver on our services. So if I can share my screen, I'll just share a short presentation. Thank you. So basically, I'm going to be talking about Industry 5.0. Lonadek is an engineering, technology, and information management company. So we're very focused on partnerships and collaborations to deliver on our products, services, and solutions. We are partnered with proprietors of technologies as well as original equipment manufacturers to provide solutions in the energy, power, infrastructure, manufacturing, oil and gas sectors. So I won't bore you with all this, but just looking at Industry 5.0, when I hear that a lot of Nigerians are emigrating or jackpine or taking off, or they're doing the journey or whatever and leaving Nigeria to greener pastures, I mean, I just feel a bit worried because I know for a start, I'm in London at the moment, but I know that Nigeria is strategically positioned in terms of its time zone for us to be in Nigeria, leverage the very cheap cost of living relative to the Western economies, and provide services remotely, virtually, through working from home and working from anywhere. So for me, Industry 5.0 is the future. We need to key into the opportunities that are going to evolve as we open up the energy transition, digital transformation cycle. And I just wanted to talk about the fact that all we're focused on at the moment is identifying, developing, and engaging local talent in Nigeria, and educating them, enlightening them, empowering them, engaging them, and then entrepreneuring them into STEMpreneurs, techpreneurs, and intrapreneurs. So entrepreneurs are people who actually work within an existing organization, but have an entrepreneurial mindset and deploy technology. So we're looking at the STEM sector at the moment. So this is basically what we're trying to do and what we've been doing for the past 31 years. We turned 31 yesterday, so that's just another news we have. So our focus is in value creation through innovation. And I'm going to be looking right now at energy transition. So there are a whole bunch of opportunities. We provide services and products, services, and solutions around energy transition, which is from the oil and gas industry to the renewable energy industry. There's gas utilization. There's a huge future as we move towards 2030, sustainable development goals attainments. So please do some research in the area of the 16+1 sustainable development goal. The 7th is collaboration, around collaboration. An earlier speaker had spoken about that. Hydrogen is going to be very big as we move out from gas. I mean, I know we have a gas master plan ongoing in Nigeria at the moment. This is a decade of gas. The Minister of Petroleum Resources has already said that gas is Nigeria's transition fuel. So there are huge opportunities around there. And gas projects are not projects for individuals or small companies. So we need to look at partnerships, strategic alliances, joint ventures, consortia effort, and all these things are enabled by technology. So for you to do your research as to the strategic partners, for you to research about where the gas fields are, for you to do your research about the data of the prolific hydrocarbon assets, everything is around technology. 3D seismic, 4D seismic technology. So renewables, transmission, distribution, storage, electric vehicles, gas aggregation, energy as a service, green infrastructure, blockchain, digitalization, all technology. Then when you look at digital transformation, which is something that accelerated during the pandemic, because I mean, logistics was a major issue. We were all restrained and restricted to one particular geographical location. Things accelerated, using of Zoom, using of Microsoft Teams, augmented reality, virtual reality, extended reality, mixed reality, Internet of Things, cloud became the norm. So in the oil and gas industry, for example, we had to replicate existing physical assets into digital twins and digital assets so that you can actually work from where the expertise exists. So if an expertise is in Houston, Calgary, or maybe Aberdeen or Ricewick, and you have the physical asset in the Gulf of Guinea, maybe offshore Nigeria, what you will have to do is empower a Nigerian who is physically in the asset and deploy extended reality, augmented reality, and cloud-based solutions to engage that individual physical human capital asset in the facility and remotely transfer technology and knowledge via the cloud to be able to deploy your expertise. People were not able to fly. The cost of 2 weeks quarantine to go offshore and come back offshore became unrealistic. So we had to deploy IT integration, cloud technology, smart mobility, big data, data analytics. We also had to deploy drone technology, blockchain, electronic document controls and management systems, robotics, and 3D printing, because in some cases it was almost impossible to move a solution across from one physical location to another. So people had to use 3D printers to create the damaged components, as opposed to actually maybe replacing an entire compressor or entire valve. You find out what the damaged component is and have to 3D print it within the location and deploy it. So looking in the future, we're looking at green energy systems. We're going to have to use technology for the logistics, procurement, engineering, conceptual front-end engineering design, detailed engineering design, even fabrication and construction, hookup commissioning, operations maintenance. All these things have technological dimensions. And then Industry 5.0 comes to systems integration. And this is where I think a lot of young Nigerians need to get involved. You don't need to travel anywhere. Once you have the skills, knowledge, skills, and good practice, the capacity, capability, competencies, you will be able to work from home and work from anywhere, because knowledge will be democratized. You use automated networks, innovation, Internet of Things, wireless connectivity, big data, AI, cobotics, miniature sensors, control systems, instrumentation, data and system security. So these are the technologies we work around in the energy, power, infrastructure, oil and gas sectors. And don't think we have all the knowledge and all the competencies in Nigeria. We collaborate with the proprietors of technologies and original equipment manufacturers, and we build local capacity, capability, and competencies to deploy them. And this is basically to give you the various spectrum of areas where these technologies are applied: education, STEM and tech, oil and gas, energy, renewables, commerce and manufacturing, infrastructure, agro-allied and medical, and pharmaceuticals. I won't bore you with that. So this is basically some idea of, so that's a 3D model of an existing facility, which is a digital twin of an existing facility. These are the, you can see the AR, VR solutions, and you can see the remote communications going on through the cloud. And this is basically how we deliver our solutions. And so for energy transition and digital transformation, we're basically visualizing, interacting, and collaborating. So collaboration is key here. And we're bringing resources from the engineering, procurement, and construction side, and engineering, construction, contractors, operations and maintenance, safety, compliance, procurement and supply chain, and corporate functions. We're digitizing all the operations and the systems around which we're able to deploy the operations and maintenance protocols. Now, predictive operations and predictive maintenance is dependent on data. So data gathering, data analytics, using historians and PI solutions is one of the areas where we're able to get a huge return on investment by developing technology. And this basically gives you an idea of what software as a service looks at. So we are looking at structured data, unstructured data, systematic diagrams, 3D models, scan data. We extract information and clean up the data, organize and interlink and connect the data, and we're able to deliver this data on desktop computers, mobile devices, and large touch screen systems. We have drastically reduced logistics costs, mobility costs. People are working from home, working from anywhere, remotely across geographies and time zones. And you don't really need to escape from Nigeria. Enjoy the lower cost of living in Nigeria. Stay around your family and friends, but digitally upskill yourself so that you can actually work from home and work from anywhere. So this is something that I would like to engage with in. And then this is basically our facility where we train Nigerians to be able to provide these services. And I really would like to engage to find out how we can collaborate to do more. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And I mean, we do have issues and challenges, but we've been able to resolve most of our issues and challenges through strategic partners with proprietors of technology and original equipment manufacturers. And I think that's the way to go. Everything is about partnerships, strategic alliances, joint venture consortia efforts. And that's how to make the world go round. Thank you.
Wow, wow. I'm clapping as in Dr. Ibilola Amao. Thank you so much. It's all about collaboration, strategic alliances. That's what makes the world go round. Thank you very much for breaking all of these things down. And so for somebody like me, when people start talking about technology and they start breaking it down, I used to like, this is getting so overwhelming, I need to run away from it. But now we need to understand that technology is a part of our life. We can't run away from tech. We can't do anything meaningful if you run away from technology. Technology is not just the future, it's the now. And that's why sometimes I leave my phone or my laptop for my children and they are doing things that I can't even think about. And like, how did you guys get to know it? I should not forget that these guys are digital natives. They are born into technology. I'm still trying to grab, but technology is very essential. All those things we talked about, Internet of Things and blockchain and what have you, they are very essential for us to power the business of the now and of the future. Thank you so very much, Dr. Ibilola Amao. I'm still going to come back to you at the question and answer segment. Please kindly hold on with us. Ladies and gentlemen, it's still EC Business Summit 2022, and we are looking at how to accelerate business growth by leveraging technology. And you would agree with me, it has been very, very insightful. Kindly hold on. There is no better way to spend 2 hours of your independence other than what we're doing right now, because I know we're going to leave here a lot more enlightened. All right. Right now, let me quickly move on to my third panelist, Mr. Lesile George. Okay. 1 second, and I would pull up his profile. Mr. Lesile George is the lead consultant of Orizon Boon. He's a human resource and business management professional. He's a skilled and driven professional who has a strong hold on application of the working knowledge of HR practices. He adapts theories to functional tools in business enhancement situations. For years, he has driven the business of companies and individuals by helping them learn how to adapt their workforce to the changing demands of the ever-changing corporate environment. In addition to having worked as a human resource consultant, he has worked as head, manpower development and group head, human resources, and designed and facilitated training and consulted for various organizations. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Mr. Lesile George as he gives us his presentation on how he leverages technology, and if he has challenges, he's also going to tell us about them. Thank you very much, Mr. Lesile George. You have the floor now. Mr. Lesile George, are you in the room? Looks like he's not on the call at this moment. Okay, so while we wait for him to join, I guess he has some challenges. I saw him on the call not quite long ago, but it's off now. So I'll probably just throw some questions to my panelists while we wait for Mr. George to come back. And then, like I already typed in the chat box, please, if you have any question for the panelists, for the keynote speaker, or just any general question that we can assign to anybody, kindly type your questions in the chat box. Let's make this as interactive as possible. Questions are also some means of feedback, right? We want to be sure we are not just doing this for ourselves. We want to be sure you're also following and you want to ask questions. All right, we have Mr. Lesile George back in the room. Okay. All right, so we need to enable him to be able to speak. I think you can speak now. Kindly go ahead. Awesome.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. This is an amazing opportunity to be here in the midst of all the different people that have spoken before me, Dr. Ekekwe, Dr. Akindele, Dr. Amao, and it's amazing. I didn't know I was supposed to do a 5-minute speech, but then, well, let's do this. Back in the day, I think the speaker before Dr. Amao, he was talking about back in the day, the factors of production: land, labor, capital, and entrepreneur. Well, we found out later that it's basically, well, enterprise. Anyway, the idea is land is every natural resource that's available to you. That's what land is, every natural resource that's available to you. Then labor is every human resource that's available to you. Then capital is every kind of man-made resource, technology, money, market, you name it, every kind of data, information, every kind of man-made resource. And then enterprise is the capacity to take land, labor, capital, and create productivity. That's what enterprise is. But then enterprise doesn't work if labor, which is the people, if labor is not making things work. But today we find that for labor, for people to use enterprise in this world today, it has to actually resort to the man-made resource. And the particular one it resorts to is technology. Now, I think the first time it actually blew my mind and registered in my head was in 2019, had this meeting. It was an international meeting and it was online. It was a project and we were on this project, and I was talking to people that were all over the world, in India, in the US, in the UK, South America, in the Middle East, in South Africa. One guy was in Niger, there was one in Ethiopia, there was an Egyptian, you know, it was all over the world. And I sat there thinking, 20 years before, we would have had to meet somewhere, which was something really interesting. I realized that because of how the world has become, what it has morphed into, technology becomes a can't do without. It becomes imperative. 2020 proved that to us, where organizations that did not have technological capabilities had to rise. They had to switch. They had to commit resources to the idea because they realized that if they didn't do that, the business was going down. And it's one of the craziest things to realize. Take Zoom, for example. Before 2020, Zoom was making, well, some money. And in 2020 till 2022 or 2021, it was insane how much money they made, simply because we needed that tool to drive whatever we were doing, as in business, as in connection, as in interconnectivity. It's the craziest thing, and it is the most imperative thing. I found that my job really is to advise organizations from the lowest to the highest, talk to boards, talk to senior management, talk to the C-suite, and my job is to explain to them how to move from point A to point B. That's basically what I do. And I have realized that even when my job is not connected to, like Dr. Amao, we're talking about Internet of Things, we're talking about blockchain and all that, even if it's not directly
connected. The advice that I've ever received was advice that I used to give out to people all the time. It was say as much as possible in as few.
Forgive me, it just keeps coming up. Okay. Now, I found that even when you're not directly connected to some kind of tech, the people that you work with are connected to it. I advise on things like that. I advise on security, advise on a lot of all those kind of things. And I realized that how it is done, not just what is done, how what is done has changed. And we have started to lean heavily on tech. So when I start to talk to people and I start to advise, I ask the question sometimes, how does your business run? What are the dependencies that you have? How do you get rid of those dependencies? How do you make it easier for your organization to scale? And when we start to talk about that, there is no way you're not going to talk about some kind of technological advancement or the other. And that's how it works. And that's the reality today. So my business is really to talk to people, to advise, to help them see clearer. That's basically what I do. But then, for them to do the kind of things that they do, for them to be able to, for lack of a better term, scale, they need technology. And it depends on the kind of technology that they need. I have found that I can't change certain things, but the things that I can effect or affect, those things I can affect, I have found that it becomes easier to do if I know what kind of tech I can apply or employ. And life has become easier. Life has become completely easier. So I think that businesses today need to understand technology is a tool. You see, when I was counting the man-made resource, they're tools. They're what we use to move from point A to point B. They're things that we convert to tools. If it's information, we convert it to tools. Now, my job requires me to get info, to get data, to be able to analyze data, to be able to see beyond what's the surface of that data. So a lot of times I have to actually deal with mining data, and all that is made easier by tech. So I'm talking data analytics, I'm talking HR analytics, I'm talking about a lot of all those things, but it's the technology behind those things that make it possible. It's a synchronon. It's just like I should add my voice to whatever everybody else has said, because that's the reality. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much, Mr. Lesile George. Technology is not an option. It's something we'll have to embrace. And I like the fact that you also advise businesses on how to adopt, how to make the best of their businesses, of course, using tools, using all the 4 factors of production. Right now, I'm going to move on to questions that I have for the panelists. Professor Ndubuisi Ekekwe, thank you so much for still hanging on. We quite appreciate your presence, and of course, all the other all the panelists, Dr. Akindele, Dr. Ibilola Amao, and Mr. Lesile George. So for anyone who wants to ask a question, kindly type them in the chat box. And if you would prefer to talk about it when it's time for that, we would enable you to speak. All right, let's have the questions coming, the comments also. Let's have them coming in the chat box, right? So let me go to my individual question, or maybe before I do that, let me throw a question to Professor Ndubuisi Ekekwe. You talked about numbers, you talked about capabilities. And for somebody like me, maybe this might be a biased question now. I work with MSMEs and I work with startups. And I found out that the major problem with MSMEs is that they are not thinking like these startups. They are not powering their businesses enough with technology. They are not thinking like they should think about scaling, about numbers like you mentioned. So if you're in a room with a traditional MSME who wants to migrate or model their business to be able to attract what startups are attracting, what advice will you have for them? Because I know most of us here, we still do some things that we do like traditional MSMEs. What advice will you have for us so that we can start thinking and start developing capabilities like the startups do? Oh, we need to enable him. Sorry, 1 second. Oh. Please go ahead and unmute.
Okay, so thank you so much. And let me also stand on existing protocol. All the speakers and co-speakers here, thank you so much for deepening this conversation. I like to story here. When I was in the village in secondary school, I lived with my grandmother, and she don't believe in fertilizer, the inorganic fertilizer, because she believed that if you apply the inorganic fertilizer, you are actually going to poison the land. And this land belongs to the ancestors, and who can bring something foreign into the land that they cannot be happy. So our agricultural teacher had actually taken us into the advantages of applying an organic fertilizer. So I said, hey, Grandma, this farmland, I'm going to divide it into two. One part, I will use what my teacher told me in agricultural science. Your own part, you do what your own grandparents have been doing. But at the end of the farming season, the harvest period, we are going to harvest. So when that happened, you know what happened? My own had performed her own. And when my own had performed, I said, okay, now paying the school fees will be easier because the yams are bigger. You can market will make more money. You know, the next year, she said, can you ask your teachers that I'm also interested? He gave you. So that was how she became a believer of using fertilizer. The same thing applies in business processes. I believe vividly that if we begin to help people to see how value is captured, instead of making this technology thing as more of an academic exercise, we just realize that everyone wants to make money. Everyone wants to have a bigger alert every morning as a business person. So if you translate the talking into implementation using cases where people can see that by automating this process, by digitizing this process, this business can actually deliver more value for me of adoption. But if we focus on teaching and talking about technology, instead of focusing on the strategic objective of the business and how these can actually help them, we are going to be very, very successful. You know, the reasons why a lot of people are not adopting e-Naira, the central bank digital currency, is that Naira is in far away, whether it is Zenith Bank, UBA, or e-Naira, or whether it's paper, it's still the same Naira. What people are focusing on, how do I make more Naira? Not whether it is e-Naira, Naira. So what is it that technology can do to make it possible for you to earn more? When you demonstrate that, you just realize that people will do that. Finally, look at this simple example. You run a small shop where you are selling something. You know that businesses think people are coming buying things. At the end of the day, you think you are not getting enough money that you would have captured because possibly some staff are stealing money. But now you get a tech person and say, let's automate and digitize the payment. Now you know, these guys came on Monday. We made a sale of 20,000 naira. But the days they did not use that technology, it was 15,000, 12,000. Does it mean that only Monday and Tuesday? So by demonstrating that you can show revenue assurance because you have digitized the way you collect money. But if you touch it, they will not believe. But if you show it, they will believe. There was a case study of that state. A group of young people, Kabiu, Michael, and Olamide, they started what they call touch and pay. You know, this company that they used to pay for BRT bus. If you enter the BRT bus, the carry card, the guys that provided that technology. Lagos State government, everyone was riding the bus, but they were not seeing the money. How do we 200 naira, 300 naira? So you don't have problem with the doctor and the driver. You know what? When they implemented that, revenue went up. That is what technology can do in a mama shop, in a barber shop, and things like that. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So basically, don't just talk it, show it to them. So we should not reduce technology to just a textbook thing. Don't just tell them what technology will do for their businesses, show it to them. Everybody likes the sound of bigger bank alert, right? Everybody wants to earn a lot more. Show it to them that they can earn more, they can make processes simpler, if they can see the benefit, they will embrace it. Thank you very much, Professor Ndubuisi Ekekwe. Now I'm moving to my panelists, and I'm stopping first. I'm going to start with Dr. Adebola Akindele. Dr. Akindele, and my question to you is this: you know, we've talked about numbers, technology, and what have you. So, what challenges do you solve with numbers and technology? You want to bring it home? What challenges do you solve with numbers and technology at Courtevile Business Solutions?
All right, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Thank you very much. At the beginning, see, when we started with the auto-reg, we needed to go for, what we considered brave, the toughest, most difficult market to break into, and that was Lagos State. You also had the most enlightened set of end users that you could come across. It had the most, exposed in terms of the government system and policies that you had in Nigeria at that time. 2007, we started talking to them in 2006. At that time, the idea was for us to try and improve upon what they've been doing. All right, now, if you can recollect, for those of you who already were old enough and good enough to have vehicles there, whatever you got from the station, license stations, was not guaranteed to be the original documentation. Secondly, your records, even if they were original, had no presence anywhere in the state government's records that you can rely upon. There was zero integrity of the data that they had. Now, they had different pockets of computerization of systems and all that. But in convincing them to go with us, they've been approached by even politically stronger people who are more connected than we were, to say, let us computerize your system. Let us computerize, but we did not go there to computerize any system. We offered them what I call a business solution. Now, we had no single data or database to work with. And that was the challenge. You are coming with a program, a technology that says we are going to use data to help solve these major problems. And even they did not believe what was possible. So at the presentation, one question came up from the permanent secretary, and he asked me, how are you going to start with the data that you need to use? And my response then, even though I came, on the spur of the moment, was that we're not going to do this the way others had been trying to do it, computerization. We're going to provide a solution, and we called it, zero-based data creation system. That was also the conference. Every vehicle license expires in 12 months, ordinarily. Now, from my old banking days, my last bank, Fountain Trust Bank, it was a small bank. It was a merchant bank that eventually, evolved into a universal bank. They didn't have any experience in commercial banking at all. So I was brought on board to come and, start the commercial banking, activities. And what we were was just so small that we really could not compete in many areas with the other banks. We did not have the capital. We did not have the branches. We did not have the size. We did not have the connections. We did not have the anything for us to be considered a serious bank. But something that we had in the year 2000 was we knew we could leverage technology to get beyond what limited us in terms of brick and mortars, in terms of naira and kobo and dollars, in terms of a lot of things. And we came up with solutions that, kind of became the progenitors somewhat of these payment gateway systems in Nigeria, whereby we started helping MTN, Airtel, multi-choice, they are just common, multi-choice, yes, collection of DSTV money. We came up with systems for them to collect their subscriptions monthly without necessarily having people go to banks. And that helped until all the other banks caught on. Then we came up with the, if you remember that, the visa booking system for the American embassy. I can't remember what they called it now. Fountain Trust came up with it, and it generated a lot of activities for them. Lastly, Wired Direct and Neco Online were, innovations of Fountain Trust Bank. The result checker, card checker for the result. It came out of Fountain Trust Bank. So we knew we had to employ technology to get ahead. It was the same thing that we needed to do in Lagos at that time. So I knew that for any collection system, one, if it is periodic in collection, as in it is not a month or a day or a week or a year or 2 years or 5 years, if it is periodic, If it is regular, if it is not only periodic, it is also going to be paid. Whether you like it or not, if you're part of a system, you must pay it, like taxes, for example. It is regular, you must pay every year. And if it is also, what the third thing now, if all these features, once any payment system has that, then it can be applied to the business development automation system. Now, what we told them was that since every license expired, this is trade secret, by the way, expired every year, 12 months, we knew that we didn't have to go and start recording the poor integrity data that they had, where files could have been exchanged, where documents could have been exchanged, where you needed to visit about 37 stations to collect their files and computers. It made no sense. We said all we needed to do was know that if we start in January, for example, and all the people in January came on board for 31 days of January, we will have their data because we will enter them. The data entry will capture the January people. By the time we get to January 2000 and the following year, we do not need to collect their data again, except for new registrations, people that can join. By the time we get to February, we collect the ones for February, all right? And then so on and so forth until they get to the end of December. By the following year, all we need to add, all we need to be adding by the following year will be the new registration. And in that time, from zero database, now we have over 20, no, that's over 30 million records, individual records. I'm not talking about vehicle records, individual files, individual records of not only vehicle licenses, but of owners, their home addresses, their phone numbers, some of them for their emails. You can use all this. The government uses this. They've been using this to determine their budget, to fashion out, their policies, to determine where there are more, the traffic, where you had more vehicles. The government of any state where we work can determine where the big vehicle owners are. On my street on Commercial Avenue here, I can just press a button, and my system will come up with the number of vehicles whose addresses are on this street. If I wanted to just pick out those ones that have Mercedes-Benz or even Volkswagen, I can do that, press of a button. If I want to know how many of them own Toyota or Honda. By the way, all these guys come to us, police, EFCC. Vehicles are no longer allowed. You can't steal a vehicle and go and register it somewhere else. The insurance cannot be replicated. So there is a lot of value that has been created just by being able to develop and design and develop that database that has been useful for every single area of what we do. EFCC comes to us, police come to us, government come to us, individual companies come to us for data mining. And that is what it is. We solve the problem, one, and look at the ripple effects. Things that we did not think we could do. Courtevile won the award of Commonwealth Ministers of Technology or something. In the UK, around 2015 or thereabout, where we were given the award for our service, the service that we provided for NAFDAC. That was the second of its type in the world. We were just trying to solve a problem for NAFDAC. And because the challenges in Nigeria are so huge, are so many, because Nigeria is such a virgin area for the deployment of business solutions to solving problems. Every time you try to take into consideration all the challenges that you need to address in solving the problem in Nigeria, they become extra kills, they become overkills outside Nigeria because most of those challenges do not exist outside Nigeria. So of course we won, and we won so many international awards that way, just by trying to solve problems in Nigeria. Yeah, thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much for that. So when you set out to solve a problem, you just never can tell how much opportunities are waiting you. And that's the story of Courtevile. I want to say kudos to you, Dr. Akindele, and your team at Courtevile for solving that problem for us in Lagos and all the other 25 states in Nigeria and even outside the country. Now I'm going to move quickly to Dr. Amao, and I want you to respond to this question in 2 minutes. Dr. Ibilola Amao, what exceptional capabilities have you been able to develop using numbers and technology at Lonadek Global Services? We are talking about how have you been able to develop capabilities with numbers and technology? Kindly unmute.
Thank
okay.
you. Okay, thank you so much. I want to say we've been very privileged to have had the opportunity to work with multinationals and government to execute skills gaps analysis. And basically from the skills gaps analysis, which is around local content, domiciling, domesticating, and democratizing technology, we've been able to come up with numbers. And in the area of engineering, whether it's process, piping, civil, structural, electrical, instrumentation, pipelines, rotating equipments, depending on which area, we've been able to use numbers, and we've been able to merge that with expatriate quota of where spend is going in terms of engaging international skills in the oil and gas industry, for example. So that's one example. And then we've been able to deploy human capital development initiatives, graduate empowerment training, and discipline-specific continuous professional development programs to bridge the gap. So that's a data solution. Then we've also been able to migrate from using APIs and using data from our interaction and collaboration in social media to tie that to Salesforce. And we've been able to collaborate with our partners across geographies, international partners, because they have Salesforce portals as well. And then we have their data intelligence and data mechanisms that we subscribe to. So for us, data is so important in all the decisions we make. And because we're in a very fast-paced and highly competitive industry, I mean, the basic training for every engagee or every employee or everybody in our ecosystem is to have that basic knowledge of how can you mine, clean, optimize data so that we're making decisions as quickly as possible, leveraging data.
Thank you so much. Data is live, right? And when I'm talking data, now it's not just data on your phone to browse. We're talking about data that helps you make informed decisions. I have a follow-up question, Dr. Amao. I have a question in the chat box. Are there solution apps or software that were fully developed here in Nigeria? Now we are talking local content that you currently use.
Right, we customize most of the solutions we use. And I'll say in the oil and gas industry, because it's a multi-billion-dollar industry with zero tolerance for errors, most of the solutions deployed are proprietary solutions, software from oil and gas specific technology proprietors who have been in business for 50 years plus. Most of, I mean, I take, for example, Schlumberger, for example, gave Texas A&M about $8.5 million at some point for R&D. We don't have that kind of research and development investment in Nigeria. So what we do is through collaboration with the proprietors of technology, we build capacity and an ecosystem around the solutions. And then we customize the solutions, and we develop add-ons, bolt-ons, APIs. We develop pre-processors, post-processors, and we intelligently extract the information for predictive engineering, operations, and maintenance from the established solutions. So personally, I mean, maybe 30 odd years ago at research and development in university, I was involved in generic development of solutions. But I must say today, there's so many, there's open source solutions. Nobody starts from ground zero anymore. And if you're going to play big in high tech space, I mean, it's a no-brainer that you could leverage existing open source subroutines or applications, APIs, and then optimize it to get the kind of results you want. So whether it's Python, R, people are basically customizing existing solutions that are proven and tested because, I mean, we're in a very expensive and highly competitive sector.
Thank you, Dr. Ibilola Amao. You are so much at home with all of these technology things. Awesome. Now I'm going to move to Mr. Lesile George. I hope, oh yeah, he's still in the room. Mr. George, How do you, we're still talking numbers and technology. So how do you use numbers and technology to overcome your customers and clients' challenge at Orizon Boon? How do you embrace numbers and technology to help your customers and your clients to solve their problems? That's for Mr. Lesile George. Are you still there, please?
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you.
You can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. All right, I have to keep moving around because I have renovation going on, so I have to keep moving around. Okay, when it comes to advisory services, there's a lot that we need to think about. Take, for example, an organization that is talking its strategy at the beginning of the year. Now, there are two strategies every organization must actually have to deploy every year. Every time you come up and you say, okay, this is what our plan is for the year. Two strategies. The first strategy is what we call your competitive strategy. How do I compete in the market? These are our goals. How do we achieve these goals? And then the other strategy is what we call the collaborative strategy. Who do I collaborate with? Which organization, which whatever it is that I need to collaborate with for me to be able to achieve this goal. So those two strategies, but for me to be able to say, all right, your collaborative strategy or your competitive strategy, I have to look at data. I have to look at data. I have to look at information, enough for me to be able to say, this will work, this won't work, this should work, this shouldn't work, and all that. So when we talk about numbers, the numbers don't lie in some regard. Well, in some parts, in some areas, yes, the numbers lie, but the numbers don't lie. And I have to actually have a strong grasp on what the numbers are for me to be able to advise. I mentioned earlier about data, about having to mine data, about having to use that as the tool or the advisory tool. I think I used the phrase sine qua non. You cannot do without that. And that's basically the idea. Every organization needs to ask the question, what is our problem? And then when you've determined what your problem is, you ask the question, how can we approach this problem to solve it? Then you ask the question, what are the tools that we can use? You see, when you come to tools today in this world, you cannot talk beyond technology. That's basically what it is. Those are the tools that we require. Of course, there are different shades to the whole thing, but really, numbers, you need to have your numbers. You need to know what the info is. You need to be able to tell what the data is saying. And that's the basis of it. Organizations will leap, organizations will scale if they understand what the market is saying. And the only way we can know what the market is saying is if we understand what the data is saying. And that's basically it.
Thank you. We must understand what data is saying. That is very, very critical. Now I'm coming back to you, Professor Ndubuisi Ekekwe. I know you do a lot of advising government, advising people on social media and everywhere. And we know that everything we've been talking about, technology, capability, and everything, is still at the mercy of policymakers, and regulators. When you have good ideas, when you don't have enabling environment, when you have policy to compete with, is a big, big problem. So I have a question in the chat box, and it says, what advice do you have for policymakers on how technology leverage can be a basic requirement for entrepreneurs in Nigeria? Dr. Ndubuisi, what advice do you have for policymakers on how technology leverage can be a basic requirement for entrepreneurs in Nigeria?
Okay, so thank you so much for that existing protocol. recognize. What I would say there, let's not be too fixated on this whole construct that the policymakers, especially those, I would say, in the government, that they have to get everything right before we can actually get into the market to tap and exploit opportunities. The fascinating thing is that if you go around the world, you see that most times the entrepreneurial space has to evolve, mature, before even the government will begin to do many things right. Carnegie, the guy that built the railroads, the steel industry in America, he pioneered it even before the United States government came along. The B.Y. Mellon, it was the man that built the United States banking sector. They even started before the United States government came along. The Rockefeller family, or the Rockefellers, they were the energies pioneers before the US government even figured out how energy was coming along. So the Nollywood industry in Nigeria, the guys who started this thing, they started before the government. What I'm trying to say here is this. I don't want us to have this fixation. The government has to get everything right before we begin to exploit the opportunities, tap the opportunity in the market. Of course, we need to hope that the government gets things right. But the problem is this. Government does not have the capacity to do many things. Nigeria's budget is about $42 billion in a year. The budget of South Africa is about $157 billion. And the population of South Africa is 60 million people. Nigeria population is about 210. In other words, South Africa budgets extra 100 billion than Nigeria's budget, even though Nigeria is 3 times the size of South Africa. What that tells you is simple, that even if Nigeria is efficient, that Nigeria does not have capacity or resources to actually go into and do most of the things that we want the country to do. A man has 10 children, he earns 50,000 naira a month. Another man has 2 children, he earns 1 million naira a month. No matter how efficient the man with 10 children is with 50,000, he is going to struggle to actually train those kids compared to the man who earns 1 million with 2 kids. So I would say this, the people that serve in the government are very brilliant people. They are well educated, they have gone to the best universities, UR, UNN, ABU, not even Futo, some of us attended. They went to Harvard, they went to Wharton, they're all very brilliant people. But don't think that they can do magic. Don't think that they don't understand what the challenges are. You know, there was an appointment they sent me the other day. I just looked at it, and the government wanted me to do something. I just told them, hey, I'm sorry, I'm not really interested in this. Why? It is not about the individual. It is the ecosystem that the individual gets into. Let's assume, for instance, you live in Maryland, United States. You have a budget to fix the road. They say $2 billion or $3 billion, whatever it is. They take you to Abia State, for instance, or your state. They say you have a budget of $1 million to fix road. No matter how good you are, you don't have the resources to make that thing happen. So policymakers know what the challenges are most times. But the problem is that they do not have the resources to fix them. I am not trying to say that we cannot get better. So what I want to focus is this. Look at yourself as an entrepreneur. Ask yourself, how did the Payster guy grow the business? How did the Flora Wave guys grow the business? How did the Kuda guys grow the business? How did the Kobo guys grow the, how did the Mint? So as you begin to make this thing around, what are the things that have to take charge of, no matter what the government people are doing? You begin to put the responsibilities of your success right on yourself, and you can now begin to innovate around the challenges that you face. Hopefully the government will do what the government is expected to do, but don't just build your business on that assumption that government has to get it right before you can thrive in market, because they may not actually get it right because they don't have the resources most times. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We should not be fixated on the government and those things that the government would get it right. Okay, so we're gradually rounding off this very insightful program. So I just have one question for Dr. Ibilola, then I'll probably ask each panelist to talk to us for like 30 seconds each, right? We have just about 11 minutes to go. Dr. Ibilola Amao, there's a question for you. What are the immediate deficiency or efficiency of Industry 5.0 in Nigeria, considering the government and regulations, environment, and technology as it is presently? I want to answer that question in 1 minute.
I think collaboration with proprietors of technology is very important. Increasing our investment in research and development and education is critical. If we don't have the human capital asset to drive the optimization of technology, then we're just scratching the surface of the problem. So I think there are areas where we need to be very focused about investment and creating a conducive environment for our youth to thrive. Thanks.
Thank you so very much. Do I still have Dr. Akindele on this call? It doesn't seem I do. Okay. So let me move to Mr. Lesile George. Your final word for everyone on this call with regards to technology and how to improve their business processes. Mr. Lesile George, let's have your final word.
Oh, okay. I think that every organization needs to ask what needs to get done. How do we do it? Like I said, every organization needs to know what their limits are and then find how they can actually do what needs to get done regardless of those limits. Collaboration expands your reach. It extends your reach, which is why we collaborate. But then it's not just the collaboration that extends your reach. It is the kind of tools that you adopt that actually help you extend your reach as much as collaboration does. So we need to be able to understand. Entrepreneurs today need to look beyond what is in front of them and ask the question, how do we tap into this? A lot of the organizations that you see, the startups that come up and all that, the reason they're having funding and all that and funding, it's because they're doing something that is not local, that is global. They're doing something that crosses the threshold of where they are, which is very interesting because technology allows us to actually play in the global market, which is an interesting thing. And we need to start to think it. You want to get big, you need to understand that for you to get big, the market has to expand. For the market to expand, you cannot be on that one spot doing your business. Your business has to transcend borders. And technology is the only thing that allows you to do that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. For you to get big, you have to expand. And I know that one of the things investors are looking for before they fund any startup is scalability. How can you scale? How can you take this solution from just your local government to your state, from just Nigeria to other African countries or even all over the world? So the like of Paystack, Flutterwaves, the investors that keep investing in them, they see a lot of ability for them to scale beyond their geographical location. And that's why startups keep getting all the funding. So we need to expand. Your final word, Dr. Ibilola Amao.
Well, my final word is maintain a humble spirit, have a culture of learning and development, engage effectively with the next generation because, they have so much more solutions than we possibly have. I'm a mother of young adults and I'm continuously learning from what they're doing. What I learned in computer-aided design and drafting over 30 years ago is so irrelevant to what's going on these days. So we need to listen more to the next generation and empower them to do greater things. Thank you.
Awesome. We need to listen more to the next generation. It's been a very, very awesome time with our panelists, our keynote speakers, and it's been quite engaging. My notes are full, and I want to believe it's the same for everyone on this call. It's been a great time of learning, unlearning, and relearning. So at this point, I will just have to turn this over to the Director of Programs for Entrepreneurs Connect, Mr. Adebola Abdul. Is he on the call? Mr. Adebola Abdul, I'm not sure he's on the call. So I will have to turn this over to Mr. Sukom Yvonne, the programs coordinator, the coordinator of EC. Mr. Sukom Yvonne. Are you on the call? Mr. Sukomi Vaughn, I will have to hand over to you now. Okay, now let's, okay. All right, so let's give this to Mrs. Omobolanle Vaughn. Let's have your closing remarks. Mrs. Omobolanle Vaughn.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
My name is Omobolanle Vaughn. Yeah, I'm the finance director of the great business platform, the Entrepreneurs Connect. I'm a chartered stockbroker and the MD of Boon Capital Limited. I want to use this opportunity to tell us that if you have any problem with our share certificate, or you want to invest for yourself and for your family, feel free to reach us at Boon Capital Limited. We are readily available to attend to you. Wow. On behalf of Dr. Ayo Adeyemi, the founder of the great platform, the great business platform, and the executive council of EC, I want to say a very big thank you to you all. Firstly, I want to say thank you for all our panelists for great insights they actually shared with us today. I believe we have all learned one thing or the other. And then I also want to thank you so much, our audience, for being part of this year's Business Summit. I hope to see you all this time, the same month, come next year, 2023. I use this opportunity to say Happy New Month to you all and Happy Independence Day. May God bless Nigeria, and then God bless all. Yeah, so sorry. I would like to say a very big thank you to our moderator, the great moderator, of today's business summit, in the person of Mr. Seye Olurotimi. We really appreciate you. We thank you. More grace and more power to your strength. Thank you all. God bless you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for being a part of this. God bless you real good. Happy Independence once again, and do enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Bye-bye.
I have to keep moving around. Okay, when it comes to advisory services, there's a lot that we need to think about. Take, for example, an organization that is talking its strategy at the beginning of the year. Now, there are two strategies every organization must actually have to deploy every year. Every time you come up and you say, okay, this is what our plan is for the year. Two strategies. The first strategy is what we call your competitive strategy. How do I compete in the market? These are our goals. How do we achieve them? And then the other strategy is what we call the collaborative strategy. Who do I collaborate with? Which organization, whatever it is that I need to collaborate with for me to be able to achieve this goal? So those two